Hello everyone, Rebecca here from Simple Suburban Living, and in this video I'm going to be pressure canning taco meat. Now I have about 4 pounds of ground beef that I have already browned. I browned it and I drained it because I wanted to get the fat, most of the fat, not all of it, but I did drain off the fat because fat can keep your jars from sealing. So I went ahead and I drained the fat. I did rinse the meat a little bit. And again, just an attempt to not necessarily get like all the fat out, because that's not going to happen, but just enough so that it would seal well. The jars would seal well. So I've got about 4 pounds of 85% meat that I have browned. I'm going to put in 2 cups of water, and I'm going to start off with 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning. Now this is my homemade taco seasoning, and I think it might be a little stronger than the taco seasoning that you get in packages, but you know, this is kind of a matter of preference, and I go to some degree by how the color of the meat as to whether or not I want to put more seasoning in. And yeah, I think I'm going to put another tablespoon of the seasoning in. And basically, I'm going to simmer this until most of the water is absorbed. Okay, so this is actually my first time of canning ground beef, and from what I hear, ground beef is better canned if it doesn't have the liquid in it. Now, according to the FDA or USDA, I forget which, you're supposed to have liquid in the meat that you can, the ground beef that you can. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of a compromise here in that I've cooked the meat and I'm putting in water now, and I'm going to cook down to where there's not a whole lot of water left. And so I'm going to just pause the video for now, and I'll bring you back when the water is mostly cooked off, and then we'll fill our jars and go from there. Okay, you can see that I've cooked off a lot of the water, but there's still a little bit. So I think that this is kind of a good compromise between the guidelines that say it's safe to do and what is supposed to end up with meat with a better texture. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling my jars now. And I'm using pint jars because that is plenty for our family. And by the way, I'm not putting a lot of the juice in. At least I'm not working to put it in. But I'm obviously not worrying about there being no juice either. So again, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a compromise. And the goal is to put it up to about 1 inch of headspace. So I actually have a little bit too much in here. So I'm going to get a spoon, and I'm going to put some into the other jar. And actually, now that I've kind of messed with it a little bit, it has gone down. So I'm just going to continue filling the jars, and then I'll decide what I want to do in terms of adding or taking away some of the ground beef. And you can see that naturally some liquid is going in the jars. And my goal was to have 5 pints because that's what fits in the Nesco canner, which is what I'm using for this project. Looks like I might end up with only 4 jars. We'll see. If so, I'll put a can of water in with it. The main reason I'm putting in water is just so that I don't end up with a canner that's not full. The canner kind of works better when it's actually full. So we'll see how this goes, but I have a feeling I'm only going to get 4 pints. And I thought for sure I was going to get 5, but that's okay. And actually, now that I think of it, this is kind of a good rule of thumb, is about 1 pound of meat per pint jar. Okay, so see, I'm kind of pushing these down a little bit. Okay. I don't know if you heard that microwave go off, but I've got a pitcher of water in the microwave, hot water, because my jars are hot, and obviously the meat is hot. I just finished cooking it, and got a little bit of meat left here, so I'm gonna just kind of fill those up a little bit more. And I did actually end up putting in all of the water, pretty much all of the liquid that was in with the ground beef. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe the rims. And I've got some vinegar here, a little bowl of vinegar. And it's really important to use vinegar when you're wiping the rims when you're using meat, because the vinegar will cut the oil. Okay, so and I'm going to put these lids on fingertip tight. So not super tight, but not loose either. If you've seen me use my Harvest Guard lids, then you would know that when I use those, then I put them on looser. But since I'm using these Ball Sure-Tight lids, I put them fingertip tight, so you don't want to just crank it on there real tight, but don't want it loose either. Okay, now I've got my jars filled, including the 1 jar of water, and I've put the vinegar that was in the bowl that I was using into the canner. I'm going to put, there's my water, and I'm going to put in my 4 jars of ground beef, taco meat. And it looks like you could fit another jar in there, but you really can't. This canner actually works best with wide mouth jars, and these are regular mouth jars. But I don't have wide mouth ones, so I'm using the regular mouth. Okay, now I'm gonna pour in 8 cups of hot water. And by the way, I've seen a lot of other people demo these Nesco canners and using 4 cups. I think maybe something has changed, because the instructions on my canner say to do 8 cups. So I'm obviously following the instructions on my canner. So I'm closing the lid, and I don't know if you can see here, but check to ensure that the pressure limiting valve is in the airtight position prior to turning on the power or selecting a function. So right now I have it in the airtight position. Okay, don't know if you could hear it beep, but I just plugged in the canner, and I am going to change the lid to the closed position. Show you right there where there's open and then there's closed, and you can see, and maybe you can see, I'm having a hard time getting the camera lined up, but you can see hopefully that it is in the closed position. And so I am going to pressure can this on high for 70 minutes. If these were quarts, the time would be 90 minutes, but I'm setting it for 70 minutes. And actually, before I do that, I need to switch the valve to exhaust. It's a little interesting because they tell you to have the valve in the airtight position when you're plugging in the canner and all of that, but you're supposed to start it in the exhaust position. So let me go ahead and get that up to 70, and I'm going to push start. Now, what's happening at this point, they call it the digital chase. It's going to spin around like this up until the heat gets to the right level, and then it will show 10, E10. E does not stand for error, it stands for exhaust. And the canner will exhaust for 10 minutes, and then at that time, when that countdown goes down, I will switch the valve on the top to the airtight position. I'll bring you back when it's time to do all of that. Okay, it's now hit E10, and it will exhaust for 10 minutes, and then it will start to count down from 70 down to 0. Down to E0, and then I switch the valve to airtight, and that's where we're at right now. Once it builds up the right amount of pressure, it will start to count down. Okay. By the way, I ended up deciding to set this for 75 minutes. So I had turned the camera off, and okay, it's now down to 1 minute left on the time for it to process. And so we'll just see what happens here. Excuse the noise in the background. Sometimes it could be challenging doing these videos with family, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. Oh, there it goes. You hear the beeping. It goes to the off position. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unplug it, and then I'm going to let it come down off a pressure naturally, which will probably take about an hour or an hour and a half. Okay. All right, I'll come back when it has come off pressure. And again, I'm letting the pressure release naturally. You don't do anything to speed it up. That's a very important part of the processing. I'll see you in an hour or so. Okay, the canner has now come down. The pressure has come down naturally, so I can open it up. And at first glance, it looks good. It looks like there hasn't been any siphoning that I can tell. Oh, I just heard the first pop. Don't know if you guys did, but that's always a great sound to hear. I'm going to let it cool for about 5 minutes or so with the lid up before I take them out of the canner. I'll bring you back at that time. Okay, a few minutes has passed, somewhere between 5 and 10. I've been hearing lots of pinging noise, and so that's always a good sign. But I wanted to show you what it looks like. You can see it's all nice and bubbly. And I'm going to take each of them out. This, of course, is just the water that I put in. Here's jar number 2 of the 4. Number 3. Good news is it looks to me like they've all sealed. Also that there was no siphoning, so that's good news. So you can see there's the 4 jars. This one shrunk down quite a bit. This first one here shrunk down quite a bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead, and we've got an air conditioner going, and since these jars are really hot, I'm going to go ahead and put a towel over them. I haven't seen a whole lot of people doing this, but it's what the Harvest Guard lids recommend, and these are not Harvest Guard this time. But I decided that since there is air blowing, cold air, that I would go ahead and cover it. So I'll bring it back in the morning and check and see that, just double check and confirm that all of them have sealed. See you in the morning. Good morning, everyone. It is now the next day, and I'm going to see if these jars have sealed. Okay. Woohoo. All right. So far, 2 out of 4. All right, so that's the third one. Okay, and here's the fourth one. All right, so they all sealed, and you can see that they actually look really good. There's a little bit of fat, but I had rinsed most of it off. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to obviously be making tacos with these. This is probably more meat than we need in a meal, so what I'll probably do is make tacos one day and then nachos the next day with whatever ground beef is left. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, that you would like this video, and also that you would subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos on canning, dehydrating, prepper pantry, all that good stuff. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.